Good evening, everyone, on this wonderful August evening in Sherman Park in our part of the world. This is another one in a series of webinars from the Sherman Park Eco Group. We're part of the Environmental Collaborative Office Neighborhood Group. And tonight we have a couple of presentations. One is by Ann Knadler, who is a longtime Sherman Park resident. And the other is by Kevin Kane, who is the chief economist for Green Homeowners. So we're going to have two presentations tonight, one on fall planting and another on the potential impact of the Inflation Reduction Bill and its environmental aspects. So, and I want everybody to know that even though you may not be watching this live, that hopefully you're now watching it in the future on a webinar, and all the webinars are available on the Sherman Park Community Association website. So hopefully you can go back and look at some of the webinars we've been doing over the last year and 3 quarters almost. So, and I'm Tim Perkins. I'm a retired United Church of Christ minister and longtime Sherman Park resident. And I'm one of the ambassadors for Sherman Park Environmental Collaborative Office. And we give thanks that Markeisha Hilliard, our new community organizer at SPCA, is our technical support this evening. Thanks, Markeisha. And we'll welcome people as they come in. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, there'll be time for asking questions, but you can also type in questions and I'll keep an eye on the messages that you send so we can ask. So let's launch in. So this evening, Ann is going to talk about fall planting, and I'll let Ann introduce that. But Ann, it's just been wonderful to get to know you over since January of last year. And Ann has been a leader in the community, and especially in gardening. And 10 years ago was instrumental in working with her neighbors and friends in starting the Uptown Neighborhood Gardens. And I'll let Ann share with you where they are and more about that. But I have to, Ann, in this webinar, I want it to be said that I really appreciate how you helped us to care for the trees on 55th and Center. You were key to the survival of our most recent tree planting that we did last year next to the post office on 55th and Center. And we give thanks for that. Some of you may also have seen the trees that were planted on 45th and Center, just going east. That was one of our projects this last year. There were also trees planted near the church that Martin Childs, one of our ambassadors, ministers, Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. So Ann, thank you for sharing some of your gardening expertise this evening, and we'll look forward to joining you in planting this fall as we look toward next spring. So
I'll just wait for Markeisha to bring up the PowerPoint. But just to piggyback on what Tim said, our community garden is on the 2300 block of North 45th, and across the street is an orchard with pears, plums, and apples. And they're all producing right now, so that's great. So tonight I'm going to focus on the low maintenance, easy peasy planting of crocuses, daffodils, and tulips. And before I get into that, though, I wanted to differentiate just a little bit between corms and bulbs. And that's about as technical as I'm going to get. And I don't want anybody's eyes glazing over with technicalities. So Markeisha, if you could scroll to the next page. So some bulbs, they require the opposite of the bulbs I'm going to talk about. I have bulbs in quotation marks because really they're corms. Those are gladiolas and cannas. You have to dig them up in the fall, store them in the house, and then replant them in spring. And so for me, I'm just very low, easy peasy gardening, and I don't like to do all that. Oh, I forgot to dig up my gladiolas and it's snowing already. So you can go to the next screen. But at the same, and now here's a picture on the right. That's what the gladiola corms look like. Now the tulips, I don't know if you can see, but they're a little more substantial. This is a very small tulip bulb. The daffodil bulbs are quite big, but these look a little different. And then on the left, that's what a canna flower looks like, and they're very showy and they grow in summer, late summer, early fall, late summer, they're growing. But you have to remember to dig them up in the fall and store them inside and then replant in the spring. And then you can go to the next screen, Markeisha. Now, for the easy, low maintenance bulbs, they overwinter under the ground. And the only time you really need to dig them up is if you want to replant them somewhere else, or if they've kind of worked their way up out of the ground. Like this happened to me the other day. This bulb popped up when I was weeding. And so some people would think, oh, I've got to wait till fall to replant that, but you don't. I'll just bury it right back into the ground since it was already there to begin with. If it comes up, it comes up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's gardening that's what gardening is. It's an experiment. So there's daffodils and narcissus, and they're in the same family. And then there's tulips and crocuses. And actually crocuses are a corm. They look like those gladiola corms that were higher up, the picture that was shown before. But to me, crocuses, yeah, over there. But to me, crocuses are like bulbs because they can overwinter under the ground. They act like tulips and daffodils and narcissus. There's also hyacinth, but I'm not going to talk about those now, but they act the same way also. There is a wide variety of beautiful types of daffodils, narcissus, tulips, and crocus. They're different heights. I've even seen miniature daffodils. So you've got a wide variety to choose from, and you can't go wrong with any of them, really. They're so beautiful in the spring, and they're so joyous, and they bring such hope that winter's almost over, even though winter's got its place. It's nice to see it go for a while. Okay, you can go to the next screen, Markeisha. So narcissus and daffodils, they're in the same family. Narcissus, however, you may want to really look into planting those because the blooms and the foliage are more delicate looking. They're a very nice backdrop to regular daffodils. And they just add this delicate focus in your garden. Crocus will emerge first through the snow in March. And they're just so fun to see. And you look in the corner where you planted them and you say, oh my gosh, my crocus are coming up through the snow. They're petite, they're very low to the ground, maybe 5 inches at the very, very most. Narcissus, daffodils, and tulips, they will emerge later in April, May, June, and they're much showier. Markeisha, you can go to the next screen. Now here's an example. To the left is one example of daffodils. And there's just such a wide variety you can get. They're mainly daffodils I've mainly seen in yellow, orangish, sometimes white will be mixed in with them. Scheme. There's some that are just plain yellow and they just are so beautiful when they're in this bunch that you've planted and they're just standing out so tall and proud. And then in the middle is an example of a wide variety of tulips. You can get single petaled, multiple petaled, all different colors, all different heights. And then to the right, that's the narcissus. It's just this little thing that pops up through the snow, if you've got snow at the time in March. And they're just such a joy to behold. It's worth the effort to dig in your garden in the fall, get these bulbs in the ground, and you're going to really be happy in the spring when they come up. You can go to the next screen. So for these bulbs, it's the opposite of cannas and gladiolas, the corms, except the crocus is a corm, but To me, it's like a bulb. You plant in the fall, preferably September, October. But, if you forgot to plant them, if the ground can still be worked, just go out there and dig a hole and put them in. It's important to read the planting instructions even before you order. Make sure you're ordering the height you want, or before you go to, or even when you're at the store. Make note of how tall that plant will get, because you don't want to be planting a tall tulip in front of a short daffodil or something, because you don't want to block the plants that you're growing. You can scout your yard for sunlight, moisture, and shade, but that's kind of something you really need to do throughout the year. So you kind of get a feeling for where the sun is. Most people probably do have a feel for that with their yard, if they're growing things already. Crocuses are most happy in a south-facing sunny location because they emerge so early through the snow. They really like that sun, that little bit of warmth that they can get. They're very happy with that. Daffodils and tulips, they do like sun. However, they will last longer with some shade, because lately spring has become really hot and it seems to be a trend. So you really should try to find a spot where it can get part sun, part shade. They'll be a lot happier. I've seen my daffodils and tulips just kind of bake when we get these hot spells in, May, June. It's just like so sad, and they should be thriving in that cooler weather, but so try to plant them in the spring. Now, if you do choose to plant the cannas, they thrive in hot, humid weather, so we certainly have a lot of that. They like to be watered a lot. So it's something to consider when you're picking out these plants. Just remember where they like to grow and plant them in that spot in your yard. And if you discover you picked the wrong spot when they start growing in the spring, you can always dig them back up and put them in another spot. And really, I think you can dig them up after the flower has died and you still got the foliage there. You can still dig it up. You don't have to wait till fall. Dig it up and just plant it where you think it's going to be happier for next year. You really don't need to wait until, I don't think you really need to store it in your refrigerator until fall. Just dig it up, put it in this other spot. I'm sure it'll work out. I've done that before. So Markeisha, you can go to the next slide. Now this is what the bulbs look like. And I think this little bulb I found in my garden probably isn't going to show up too well on the screen, but it's got the peak. They've got the peaks at the top. And then on the bottom, they're going to look kind of hairy, but that's the root system. And it's important to know exactly how to plant these for success. This says this picture here, it's getbusygardening.com. You may want to jot that down and try to check out that website. They'll have some easy directions or instructions. This bigger bulb is probably a daffodil. They're very big bulbs. Okay, so Markeisha, you can flip to the next screen. So daffodils and tulips should really be placed in a 5 to 6 inch deep hole. I think maybe even closer to 6.5 inches. Crocuses only need 3 inches, but be sure to follow the instructions on the package. And make sure you loosen up the dirt really nice. No little rocks in there, or big rocks or tree roots. Make sure it's in nice loose dirt, really get it loosened up. Dig a hole that's bigger than what you really need so you can place these bulbs. And really the world is your oyster when you design how to plant these. If you plant them in a straight row, they're going to all come up in a straight row. If you plant them in a circle, that's how they'll come up. But if you want to just like maybe put 3 or 4 in a hole, and then you have these kind of focal points where they're just coming up here, there, and the other place, that looks nice too. So really, just design how you want to there, but don't plant tall ones in front of short ones, because you're not going to be happy with that. And then throw some bone meal in the bottom of the hole before you place the bulbs. And it's really important to place the pointy top of the bulb facing up. And then the flat part on the bottom with that hairy, you'll see this hairy stuff on the bottom. That's the root system. So that gets laid flat on the ground and the pointy side up, and then just fill all that dirt back in. And sometimes I'll water before I cover up the hole. I'll sometimes water just a little bit to give them a start with some moisture. But I've also done it the other way where I didn't put any water in at all, and they do just fine. The moisture from the snow and the rain, it will seep in. And if you've forgotten to put the bone meal in, you don't have bone meal at the time you're going to plant. Honestly, I've never used bone meal myself, but maybe my tulips and daffodils would be even better if I did. But if you forgot, you can also sprinkle it on the top and kind of water it in, and it'll make its way down to the root. So it's not too late. Okay, Markeisha, you can go back. You go to the next one. So here's a very nice chart showing if you wanted to plant more than tulips and narcissus and daffodils. See, the crocus up at the top looks like a little donut, but that's a corm. That's why it looks so different than the other bulbs. But to me, they act just like a bulb. So that's a 3-inch depth. Tulips are like almost between 6 and 7 inches, and same with narcissus and daffodils. They'll be very happy. They'll really produce for you well if you follow this depth chart. Okay, you can go to the next. And oh, can you back up for a second? And you can see how the pointy part, it's facing up, and then that flatter part with the hairy root system that lays on the bottom. Okay, you can go to the next one. So the tools you'll need will be a trowel, a shovel, a ruler, and bone meal. But you know, if you don't have a trowel, all you have is a shovel. You don't need to go buy a trowel. Just use the shovel. It'll work just as well. And if you don't have a shovel, but your ground is pretty loose, just use the trowel. Just use some elbow grease and dig that hole. You could even just dig one single hole and put one bulb in there if that's how you want to arrange them around the area that you're planting. Now, you can buy trowels that have convenient measurements on them. They go up to a 6-inch depth measurement, but there's also some leeway at the top, so that can be like 6.5, 7 inches. But if you don't have a trowel like that, just use a ruler, yardstick, just kind of guess what 6 inches might be on your hand and put your hand down in there and see if that comes to the right depth. But it's really important to plant to the right depth. Okay, you can go to the next screen. So here's an example of that trowel with a measurement on it. It's kind of nice to have if somewhere along the line someone says, what do you want for Christmas? Just say, I want a trowel with measurements. And then there's the bag of bone meal. They sell a wide variety of bone meal. I think the next time I plant some bulbs, I probably will use the bone meal. But okay, you can go to the next screen. So now you probably won't remember this when you're planting in the fall and when the blooms start to fade. Some people are very fastidious about their yards. And they think, okay, the flowers are gone. I'm going to cut this plant down. It's just going to get brown and it's not going to look nice. But I say embrace Mother Nature. If that's what this plant needs is to die off naturally, then do it. So do not cut back the leaves after the blooms have died off. Let these leaves die off naturally because it sends the energy back into the bulbs for next season's blooms. You may not have as glorious a spring flower blooming time frame if you don't let that happen. Now, with daffodil leaves, they can sometimes, especially if you get the really big daffodils, their foliage is it's just very strong and very upright and just kind of powerful looking. And I'll take a strip of soft cloth and I'll just tie it around loosely and it'll just sort of be standing there like this. It will eventually start to sag downward and die off at the bottom. And it really isn't until mid-July that those daffodil foliage is ready to really be cut down. They're starting to die. I don't touch the foliage for these bulbs until they practically fall apart in my hands. Now with the tulip stems, they die off much quicker than daffodils. Probably because the daffodils kind of come up before the tulips, and they just need more energy. But with the tulip stems, they start to look gray. And I'll go to them and I'll do the slightest little tug on that stem. And if it doesn't come out with the slightest tug, I'll leave it. I'll know that it's not ready to come out. But later on, like maybe another couple of weeks, if I see them there, I'll at least little tug. And if it comes off, great. But the other day I pulled one and the bulb came with it. So I just dug it back into the ground. It's okay to do that. What happened? So the other, so then again, in the spring, before the plants disappear altogether, I would go out and mark where these plants are standing, just in case you decide to plant more bulbs next fall. Then you'll know that you're not digging up existing bulbs. Or if you want to dig up existing bulbs, you know where they are. So you can come up with some creative ways of marking where they are that still look kind of cute in the garden. Put a bunch of pinwheels in there, and you know that is marking where the bulbs are. But people going by think, oh, that's a cute little decoration in her garden. Okay, next slide. So this is the time of year when the bulbs will start showing up at stores. They really don't start showing up till August, late August, for September, October planting. So it's time now to be looking and planning. You can go to the big box stores, Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, Stein's, garden centers. Even Aldi's will be selling bulbs. Or you can purchase from catalogs, go to their websites. But with the shipping issues, I don't know if they would be delivered on time to plant this fall. But you can ask if they can guarantee a good delivery time frame. But just be aware that maybe what they're promising may not work out. But I've had good result with just buying them from Menards or even Aldi's or a garden center. So they're all good options. So that's my presentation about daffodils and crocuses and tulips. So if anybody's got any questions, or if you've got way more knowledge than I do about this topic, please bring it up. And stick around after this, because a very smart guy named Kevin Kane is going to present very valuable information.
Thank you, Anne. Boy, I learned some things. And Bonnie's here with me, and she's a great gardener, master gardener. But so I'm learning things from her all the time. But I learned some more things from you. So one of the things I'm wondering about: how long is there a point where bulbs no longer flower?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like I have some in the front of my yard where the soil's not real loose, it's more clay. And they don't look as prominent as the others further back in the garden where the ground is looser and they're happier. And there's also a point where they will sort of multiply. So at some point you do need to dig them back up and kind of separate them and replant them. But you kind of get a feel for how they're looking. Maybe I should probably put the bone meal in the ones on the front. I'm gonna go buy some bone meal. See if that helps in the spring.
Well, one of the things we're hoping to do through the community association and through Sherman Park Eco is to encourage people to do more planting in the fall and to bring more beauty into the community. And one of the things that I become aware of, Bonnie made me aware of, that there is a plant sale on Saturday for, oh geez, I thought I had it right here. It's a native plant sale.
Hmm.
Where is that? I don't have it in front of me. I thought I did. So it's yeah.
Yeah, see,
Well,
I really love planting perennials because they're very low maintenance. You just have to maybe pull some weeds if you don't have a lot of good mulch down. But as one plant, flowering plant is dying off, another one is coming up to take its place, and the focal point goes to the one that's blooming. And so it's just something's always happening, and you don't have to every year buy a new set of plants. You might buy some annuals just to fill in the bare spots, but I love perennials.
Yeah. So the plant sale on Saturday is from 9:30 to 12:30. It's sponsored by the River Revitalization Foundation. And the sale is, the address is 2134 North River Road. I'll put it in the chat for those who might want to set the updated address. Yeah. So thank you, Anne. Any other questions for Anne? Well, we know we have a resident expert on bulbs. I didn't know about quorums before either.
Yeah.
So that's something new to me as well.
Yeah.
And we have you can't see it, but there's a canna right behind me that Bonnie does dig up in the winter time or in the fall and take inside.
Right. I know bulbs. I read that bulbs are actually the little leaves. They've shrunk down. The leaves have shrunk down into this bulb. That's what they are, the leaves. But the corms, I'm not quite sure what the corm is. It's different, but.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll, again, like with all our webinars, we want to make sure that they are shared with other people. So feel free to share the SPCA website address, and we'll share all the webinars, and including a couple of webinars that Kevin has done for us in the last year and a half. So thank you, Anne. Wonderful. Did a great job. And thanks to Steve O'Connell. We should put in a plug for Steve, who helped Anne with the slides. It really worked well.
Yes, he helped me he put the PowerPoint together. I sent him the text and some pictures, and he had some pictures, and couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah, so we give thanks for Steve. So Kevin, as most people know who attend our webinars, is the chief economist for Green Homeowners United, and has worked with a number of us in the community to help us to winterize our homes and help make our homes more energy efficient. And Kevin's going to talk about the potential impact of the Inflation Reduction Act that was just passed, thank goodness, and do some reflecting on how that might impact a neighborhood like Sherman Park and those of us who want to become more stewards of the earth and more energy efficient in our homes. So Kevin, take it away.
All right. So thanks so much for having me here and allowing me to share some of what has become almost an obsession for me over the last few years, and that's energy efficiency. But an even more specific, more recent obsession has been this Inflation Reduction Act. I've saved it on my phone. I've read it upside, downside. I've done all these sort of things because to me, this law is the Medicare of energy efficiency. This is that big of a deal. This is the Affordable Care Act. This is like that transformative kind of law that only ends up happening a few times in our lifetime. And I mean, hopefully we get a lot more of them. But this is the largest investment in addressing climate change the United States has ever done, ever. Not even close. And so it is a huge change in that way. And we're very, very excited by it. But as I mentioned, I did encourage a number of people to join us today, and many of them think that I am speaking on that at 6:45. So we're a few minutes early, and that's okay. Not that many minutes early. So instead, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a special benefit, a little bonus that the others, because they missed out on Anne's wonderful piece, don't get. So you guys are going to get some special stuff. But let me just go ahead and set it up. So don't tell them they missed out because their loss. But what I'm going to do right now is we're going to talk a little bit about some sort of nerdy building science topics, but I want to make sure that you guys know this because we get asked a lot about comfort in a home. Why is my house so drafty? Why is it so humid in the summer? Why is my top floor like the most hot in the summer and then the cold, like its basement's super cold? And a lot of that has to do with a building science topic, but air sealing in particular. And so I hate saying this, but we're not that far away, unfortunately, for when it's starting to get a little crisper outside. I mean, I love the fall, but in any case. And so I want to quickly show you guys why it matters. You've probably heard me talk about it, those who know me already, but I'm going to share with you guys why it matters. And then we'll get into the Inflation Reduction Act. And so those that wanted to join for that can see it. So again, we're going to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. We're Green Homeowners United. We do energy efficiency improvements, helping people fight climate change at home and be rewarded for it. So we have done projects all over the state. We have 100 or well over 100 jobs for projects we've done all over Wisconsin, which we're very excited by. But the whole reason we do this is because climate scientists have shown us that upgrading homes to be energy efficient is the single biggest thing that you can do to take on emissions. And so we want to do something about that. We want to make it so people can be, again, rewarded for trying to do the right thing. And so the number one thing you can do is to make your home more energy efficient, even more than making every car in the street an electric vehicle. But that doesn't even include solar power on your home. That doesn't include electrifying your home. Those are separate. So that means that homes are one of the most important things to work on carbon emissions, which is good. We have a lot of them. So approximately 90% of every building that's in the United States is a residential home. And so that means that we have to work on homes. We have no choice. It's a great excuse for us to upgrade and make our homes more livable, improve housing stock. And we'll do it to help fight climate change, but in the process, we'll improve our housing stock in our communities. So let's quickly talk about, we live in Wisconsin. What is Wisconsin experience? Beyond Milwaukee, what do we experience? Well, many of us get water from a municipality, but some get well. In Wisconsin right now, our electricity is mostly coal-fired, but it's very quickly followed by natural gas-fired electricity. So our electricity is going to become 100% renewable by 2050 is the goal, but more of it's powered by nuclear power and hydroelectric than I think some people think, and less of it's coal-fired than I think some people think. Again, this is the special piece that the others who didn't join are missing. Most of our homes in this state are heated by natural gas, but there's a not insignificant chunk of the state that still uses propane, fuel oil, electricity, or wood. And for the most part, water heaters in the state use natural gas. Some use electric. This is going to be a huge thing later because people who have electric water heaters can save a whole bunch of money by one of the things that are about to happen. You don't see them as much in Milwaukee, but they're still around. And then air conditioners. Most people have central air, but there are still quite a number of people in the state who have no air conditioning. This will matter for one of the changes in the Inflation Reduction Act. I share this because I want people to know kind of what we as Wisconsin experience, what beyond our neighborhood. So energy efficiency. When I say this, what I mean by that is water efficient plumbing, upgrading what's called the building shell, the part that keeps you inside versus outside, windows, doors, insulation, air sealing. It's also going to include lighting and heating systems, HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So when we talk about energy efficiency being the number one thing to do, this is what we mean. It's this stuff. It's not as exciting, but it super matters. Renewable energy, there are a few that make a lot of sense for homes in Wisconsin. There are a few that really don't make a lot of sense for homes in Wisconsin. The ones that make sense, solar panels, they do work. Geothermal can make sense in certain circumstances. If you got a lot of land, if you're in rural Wisconsin, if you're relying on propane or fuel oil, geothermal can make a lot of sense. Most of us, though, it doesn't. Not in the Milwaukee area, not if you have natural gas. And unfortunately, for now, wind and biomass don't really make sense for you to have on your property. Don't put a wind turbine up on your house and think you're going to save a ton of money. It's not going to happen. Sorry. But renewables are a huge piece. But electrification, we're going to hear a ton about this in the next year. So what this means, environmentally beneficial electrification, it is the practice of powering with electricity appliances and machines that have traditionally run on fossil fuels. As beneficial electrification claims a larger slice of the overall energy pie for electricity, utilities should find that it creates new business opportunities. So it's things like space heating, electric space heating, heat pumps, geothermal, thermal storage, hybrid electric heat pump water heaters, electric vehicle charging stations, and things called induction ranges. And so these three areas, energy efficiency, renewable, electrification, they are what matter for, excuse me one second, for making a home more energy efficient. And it looks like we are approximately at the 6:45 mark. So I want to make sure to get to the exact reason why y'all are here. And that's to learn about, can we upgrade our homes and be rewarded for it even sooner than we thought before. That gets in the Inflation Reduction Act. There is going to be 8.5 billion with a B dollars dedicated to residential energy efficiency. This is huge. And it's the chance for us to upgrade millions of homes. But rules are slightly different. And so I want to share with you guys what is now and what is around the corner, what is about to happen, so that you all can be first in line and or help other people know how to be first in line. So first off, there are four major parts of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was just signed by the president the other day for building owners. The first is something called the homes rebate. We're going to talk about this in a second. It requires an energy assessment of your home, but in theory, it is available now. I say in theory because we're still waiting on some of the details, but it is technically available right now. There's one called the electrification rebate. This one should be kicking in soon. Again, we're waiting on a few more details of this. There is the solar renewable tax credit. It is right now been improved. There is something called the energy efficiency tax credit, which really changes in January. And then there are, that should be 5 major parts of the law. The last one is commercial energy tax deduction. For commercial buildings, there is an improved commercial tax deduction. Unrelated, but I'm also going to talk about a grant that exists right now for those who are over 60 or have a disability or are a veteran. Because we are doing this right now to help upgrade homes together with an organization called Revitalize Milwaukee and the Public Service Commission. So if you know people who are not independently wealthy, over 60, or have a disability or a veteran, then they may qualify for a grant right now to have their home upgraded. So let's talk about the homes rebate. It's an acronym. I actually don't know what it stands for. I should probably look that up. I apologize. But it is technically available now. According to the language of the law, it's upon enactment of this act, which was just enacted the other day. But we don't 100% know when the funds will come. The feds are going to send the money to the state of Wisconsin, to the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, and the Public Service Commission is going to distribute them out. But according to the law, people are eligible as of today. I have already spoken to the Public Service Commission. They are very well aware, and they're gonna hurry up and try to get this out as soon as possible. But it's a big deal, because if we can show you how you can reduce your utility bills via an energy assessment by 20% or more of what you currently pay, you will then immediately get a $2,000 rebate to immediately reduce the bill of the improvements that you want to do. Doesn't matter what kind of improvements that you want. Furnace, windows, air conditioner, insulation. If it is part of a plan that reduces your utility bills by 20% or more, you will immediately have a reduction on what your contractor is charging to improve these, or to install these these pieces. Or if you're below a certain income, that amount is $4,000. If we can show you via an energy assessment how to reduce your utility bill by 35% or more, you'll get a $4,000 rebate to immediately reduce the bill, or $8,000 if you're below a certain income. So you have to get an energy assessment, but if we can show you a collection of different ways to get there, you can be rewarded for doing so. And you're rewarded more for doing more in the home. You can have it financed, you can have funds from other areas, but in general, this is going to encourage people to do more in the home to help fight climate change, which is wonderful. What's also fascinating is if you have a multi-family building, you multiply those above numbers by the number of units in the building. For example, if there is a 5-unit building, if we reduce the bill by 20%, they could get a $10,000 rebate off the cost of the improvements, which is amazing. So these are funds, you don't apply for them and get them after you pay. You don't get them at tax time. They immediately are reduced off the bill. And then they come to the contractor a little later. However, you must get an energy assessment by a trained assessor to qualify. This is a clear requirement. So we are waiting for the exact word from the state that I can start these, but in theory, people are technically available right now. So what might make sense to do? Maybe get an energy assessment right now so you know what improvements would reduce your bill by 20 or 35%, so that when the funds are there, you're ready to go. That's probably the thing to start with. Oh, and I will say a 35% reduction or more, you're getting into bigger things like basement wall insulation, like you see up here, or much larger insulation projects, or air sealing, or upgrading a heating system. There's a number of things that will probably have to be done, but to be rewarded for it is great. Next one, the energy efficiency tax credit. There was a one-time minor tax credit for energy efficiency improvements, but you could only get it once per lifetime, and it was capped out at $500 per life. That was not a lot of money to encourage people to do big improvements. It has now been increased, and it's made annually. So now you can upgrade a little bit every year and be rewarded for it every year. Starting next year in 2023, 30% of what you pay for energy efficiency improvements to a max of a $1,200 credit per year, unless it's a heat pump, and then it's a $2,000 max tax credit. Windows are now capped at $600, but that's okay because they can still qualify where there really wasn't much for them before. And on top of that, for the first time, energy assessments themselves can get a $150 federal tax credit. These are credits that immediately offset how much you owe the federal government, and you get them at tax time. So they've existed in years past, they're back, and we're very excited by that. Another big one though, electrification. I briefly mentioned this, the idea of helping people get off of natural gas and propane in favor of electric devices. The idea being you can make electricity renewable. You can never fully make natural gas or propane renewable. It's better than coal, but it's still carbon emitting. These are income based to a degree, but I'll get into that in a minute. According to the electrification rebate in the law, you can get an up to $8,000 rebate for a heat pump to replace an air conditioner. So a heat pump, there's a couple different types, but imagine an air conditioner that can also heat the home too. It moves heat out of the house to cool it, like a very, very efficient air conditioner, or it can move heat into the home to heat it. Now in Wisconsin, you probably wouldn't get rid of your furnace. You would probably keep your furnace and use it well below freezing. But imagine that it's above freezing, but 40 degrees outside. Your heat pump would kick in, whether it was 40 degrees or 80, to heat or cool the home. And you would significantly reduce how much you're using natural gas in the home. And up to $1,750 for a heat pump water heater, which is pictured right here. This is my heat pump water heater in my home. This heats water by moving heat as opposed to burning gas. And it actually can help dehumidify your basement, which is an interesting little benefit too. It takes in warmer, humid air, and it pumps out a slightly cooler air as a byproduct using electricity as a backup. They're very efficient. Compared to an electric water heater that many people still have in their home, this device will probably save $300 to $400 a year right away compared to an electric water heater. Additionally, there's more rebates for electrical rewiring of the home, heat pump dryers, electric ovens, and more, to a maximum of about $14,000 per home for all rebates combined. This is huge. For context, many contractors charge around this for a heat pump, meaning that for many people, a heat pump will be cheaper than a furnace, if not completely free, and certainly cheaper than an air conditioner. And as I stated, we at Green Homeowners United, once this begins, can start to install heat pump air conditioners in moderate and low income homes throughout Wisconsin for close to no cost to the homeowner. This is a gigantic change. Even homes that don't have air conditioning now can have this installed. We are waiting for the final word that we can start, but imagine being able to provide this to homes all over Milwaukee County. This is gigantic. So just really, really quickly, the income piece. What I show here is the annual median income, 80% of the annual median income or 150% of the annual median income. You must make less than 150% of the median income to qualify for those electrification rebates, the heat pump things. If you make less than this, then you can get some of the heat pump rebates. If you make less than this, depending on how many people live in your home, the heat pump can be almost free, depending on what the contractor charges. And the rebates based on those energy assessments that I mentioned, they're higher, 4,000 to 8,000, as opposed to 2,000 to 4,000. So, we will be asking people how much they earn, because that will help them qualify for more funds to make their home more energy efficient. Solar panels. Here's another one of the big one of the changes in the Inflation Reduction Act. Solar panel tax rebate, or excuse me, tax credit is once again 30% starting immediately. So if you bought a solar panel system for $15,000, you would receive approximately $4,500 in a federal tax credit at tax time. That's important to mention. You don't get it right away. You get it when you file your taxes to help immediately offset what you owe the federal government. But it used to be 30%. It started to dip. It is back to 30% again now. So solar panels, good excuse to get them. Another important one are commercial buildings. And I see Holt has a question here. How much do heat pumps and heat pump water heaters cost? Great question, Holt. Heat pumps depend on how they're being installed in the home. Sometimes larger ones are larger, or you might need multiple or things like that, depending on how complex the house is. But I've generally seen heat pumps anywhere in the realm of like 6,500 to like 9,000 or 10,000, meaning the rebate covers the vast majority of the cost. And heat pump water heaters, they usually require both a plumber and an electrician to install. So we're seeing them in the realm of about $3,000, maybe $3,500 for a heat pump water heater, sometimes less. But then that means that rebate covers the half the cost in some cases, which is really great. And there may be some electrical improvements that need to be done to facilitate that, because you're using more electricity than maybe you were before. But again, the Inflation Reduction Act reduces the cost of that as well. And as a society, we're trying to get off gas. So we want to be ready for electrical improvements, electric cars, electric water heaters, or heat pumps. So our homes may need to be upgraded, and that's okay. The law wants to help. But back to commercial tax credits. Tax deductions. That's not a tax credit. There is a new increase tax deduction for commercial buildings starting in 2023. I know many of you don't own commercial buildings, but it's important to mention because some of us do. And there are all sorts of medium and small size commercial buildings that do not know this. Your doctor's office, maybe the corner convenience store, a restaurant, a bar, they qualify for this and they likely don't know it. So it is businesses, farms, multifamily buildings over 4 stories specifically. So there's not a lot of those in, let's say, Sherman Park. How it works is if an energy assessment of a commercial building is done and you are shown how to reduce energy use by 25% or more, you can get a commercial tax deduction of up to $1 per square foot in the year done. It depends on how much you reduce the energy of the building. If you do closer to 50%, then it is more like $1 a square foot. So a 10,000 square foot building will get a $10,000 tax credit or tax deduction, excuse me, immediately, not, depreciating deductions over time like many business improvements would get. But what's fascinating is if good wage and apprenticeship rules are met by the contractor doing the work, then it is up to a $5 per square foot improvement. So that 10,000 square foot building now gets $50,000 tax deduction by making sure they are hiring good contractors who pay well and are training the next generation of workers. So this is very, very fascinating because we want to make sure that we are creating good living wage jobs fighting climate change. So I'm going to give you some examples of how these 5 features could help you. Example 1, take a family of 4 who earns, let's say, $60,000. They get an energy assessment of their home. The energy assessor shows that insulating the attic, air sealing the home, insulating the basement walls, and upgrading the furnace might reduce their utility bills by, let's say, 35%. Every house is different, but let's say that's what this house would have gotten. They would get $8,000 off those improvements immediately, the cost of upgrades. They could get a new heat pump to replace the old air conditioner effectively free or very little cost. And they would also get a federal tax credit of $2,000 for installing a heat pump. So huge changes that didn't exist right now, or excuse me, didn't exist a month ago, people would be eligible for. Example 2, a family of 2 who earns, let's say, $90,000, pays to add insulation and install just 2 windows. And they only spend, let's say, $4,000 in a year, but they didn't get an energy assessment. So they just did those things. Well, they would qualify for a $1,200 federal tax credit every single year they did this. So for those who might want to upgrade just a few windows a year, you'll keep getting that tax credit every single year. Example 3, an 8,000 square foot restaurant, decent sized restaurant, decides to get an energy assessment for their commercial building. They decide to upgrade their heating system, insulation, lighting, and windows, which would reduce their energy use by 50%. They hire a company that pays prevailing wage and apprenticeship standards. That restaurant would qualify for approximately $40,000 federal tax deduction immediately in the year that they had this installed. So now there's, good reasons for commercial buildings to consider energy efficiency improvements, but they got to get the energy assessment first. Lastly, I'm just going to mention that we also have a grant to work on homes right now with the Wisconsin Public Service Commission and Revitalize in Milwaukee. Please ignore that little last section because it's past July, so we are able to start relatively soon. This is specifically for seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities at no cost to them generally. There's a few exceptions on it, but we'll talk you through. You must be under 80% of the annual median income, which is roughly this. So basically, if you know a senior, a veteran, or a person with a disability, and they're not independently wealthy, then have them call us because we can take a look at the home. This grant will cover attic insulation, air sealing, spray foaming, rim joists, LED lights, water efficiency improvements, and more. We can only do about 50 homes with this grant. So if you think that people are interested or eligible, have them call us. You can email us or call us right there, and we'll let you know if you're eligible. And if so, this program can help immediately. You don't have to wait until next year. We're doing this all over the metro. So the best way to make sure that we help neighborhoods like Sherman Park is to help identify people in Sherman Park or Harambe or wherever that might fit this group. We're accepting applications now. So here's what we'll do together now that the Inflation Reduction Act is passed. Sign up for an energy assessment of your home. Different companies charge different rates, but it's generally a good idea to get it done. We will help you identify and sign up for tax credits, rebates, fair financing, whatever you need to make this truly affordable, to know the benefits you have. These funds go in for a few years, but it is limited. Like eventually they're going to run out. It's not a permanent program. So it is encouraging people to sign up sooner than later. We will then directly upgrade your home with the improvements and then help you make sure that you get them, the tax credits and rebates. But we request your help in telling everyone that you now are a green homeowner so that they can learn how to sign up and, they can learn the benefit and they can sign up too. We can't just upgrade homes. We need to make people realize that they should be telling others. The only way this works is word of mouth. So please upgrade your home, help fight climate change, and encourage other people to become green homeowners like you. All right, so energy assessments. Energy assessments will tell you where to prioritize in your home. Should I work on my furnace? Should I work on my windows? Should I work on my insulation? And we'll make you eligible for many of these funds. Our energy assessment costs about $350. Some of them are higher depending on how in depth you want to get on the home, because we have certain, we can go in more in depth depending on what diagnostic equipment we bring. We will keep everyone who gets or previously has had an energy assessment with us updated on the progress of the rebates and tax credits as soon as possible, so you can be first in line to benefit. You can know what will reduce your bills by 20% so that you can get those rebates. We'll make sure that you're up to date. We'll keep people informed. Or if you are buying a home, or you look to get pre-approved with our financing partner, Mosaic, which doesn't impact your credit score, doesn't impact, it doesn't cost anything, then the energy assessment is no cost, because it's about helping people figure out how to make the improvements on their home. And feel free to call us at that number, and we can just talk about how the Inflation Reduction Act can impact your home. No cost. Like, if you're just curious, if you want to know, would mine qualify? Give us a call. We'll talk it through with you and see if it makes sense for us to do an energy assessment or just visit your home, so that you can know how to take advantage of the $8.5 billion about to be spent on this. So with that, I will leave it open for questions because we have a little bit of time left. We covered a lot. Some of these things are still being figured out, like when the rebates are available. But we are very, very closely paying attention. I read up on the law every single day, and we will keep helping people until we can't find any more homes to upgrade.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, this is exciting. Ann has her hand up. So Ann.
Now, Kevin, we had an energy assessment done.
Yep.
And we had the attic installation and the rim joists air sealed in the basement. How would that affect us? Like, if we wanted to get a heat pump, that would be a part heat and part AC. How would that work? Would we have to get another energy assessment?
No. So the rebate for the heat pumps do not require an energy assessment.
Oh.
The one that is based on how much I can reduce your bill does.
Okay.
So the electrification one that for heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, rewiring of the home, induction stoves, things like that, do not require an energy assessment. But not every contractor is going to know about this yet, even when they're live. And so, yeah, figure out how much one costs, find a contractor like us who can do them, and then make sure you ask about the rebates.
So what is the rewiring, electrical rewiring? What does that involve?
A couple things. So the biggest example and the biggest rebate is your service box, your breaker box. How many breakers it can fit. Most of our homes might have an 100 amp service box, and sometimes that needs to be upgraded to support more electrical coming into your home. And there's a cost to that because there's an electrician has to come in and do it. But this law can do an up to $4,000 rebate on doing so. And I'm trying to think, I had to upgrade mine when I got a heat pump water heater, and I'm 80% certain that I paid less than that rebate amount for it. So in that scenario, the rebate might cover the entire cost.
And then this summer we had a power outage for an hour. So,
right. Another example was I was working on a house Monday in the Washington Park neighborhood, and we had to stop work in the attic because we found knob and tube wiring, which is exposed wiring that can cause fires. And we had to stop insulating. It was dangerous to the workers. It was dangerous to the homeowners. So rewiring parts of that is my understanding that this law can help offset the cost of doing that, which is important for the electrical of the building. A lot of old homes have it. Other questions?
Yeah. What about churches? Do they fall into commercial buildings?
They do, but they don't generally pay taxes. So
right.
They in some scenarios can get some of these programs for them. The rules are slightly different. It's a little weird, but if a government building or a church, and many nonprofits, if they do a commercial energy assessment, then the entity that did the commercial energy assessment, the architect, the engineer, the contractor, they get the tax deduction. I think it's a way to encourage them to charge less.
And does that actually happen? Sherry?
Kevin, do you guys have contractors that you work with or that you can recommend?
We sure do. So I am proud to say at Green Homeowners United, we now do insulation, air sealing, window replacement, heating systems, AC, heat pumps, all that sort of stuff. We do all the things that they give the rebates for, with the exception of heat pump water heaters, of which we have some plumbers that we have worked with and are good, as well as solar. We don't currently do solar, but I have worked with many contractors around town who do solar. And so if you have a contractor that you like and or does those things or the things we do, and they want to know how this program works, you know what? I'll help them. There are so many homes to do. There is no point in being turfy about homes.
Thank you.
I like that. No point in being turfy.
Perfect.
Exactly. So any other questions from other folks? Kevin, you've talked about windows in the past. Now, as windows not being necessarily the best way to make your home more energy efficient, but talk more a little bit about that. Are you
Sure.
is that a good way?
Well, okay, it's a good question. So I ended up skipping through it because I was yakking too long, but I was going to do a little bit on which improvements do make the most sense and the building science reasons why that is. And so let me just, I'm going to nerd out here for a second, but I think it matters because people ask us about windows a lot, and I want to show you why they're usually not one of the top things that I recommend. So one of the top things I usually do recommend is air sealing. Making your appliances are working overtime to heat and cool your home. Why let the air leak out? Well, three things are at work that push heated and cooled air, known as conditioned air, out of the home. Windows and doors are open, air blows in. The extra gaps inside the house push the air out the other side through holes, gaps, and openings in the windows, walls, ceiling, and doorways. I'll show you a picture in a second. There's something called the stack effect. Hot air tends to rise. The top of the house experiences positive pressure and the bottom experiences negative pressure. Holes in the attic allow hot air to escape and holes elsewhere suck cool air in. And then the fans in your home create pressure differences around your home, mechanical. So what do? We plug them. Just here's an example. Wind comes in, blows out the other side. Stack effect, hot air tends to rise, tends to leak out of the highest point. Ventilation, if you turn on a bathroom fan or a kitchen fan, it might blow air out, but it's going to suck it in somewhere else. And so all these things matter for where air leaks in and how leaky a house is. And that gets into how much energy you're losing and how comfortable the home is. Well, the thing is, of those, stack effect is the thing we care about the most. Chimney effect, it's also called. It's why your chimney works the way that it does. Hot air tends to go out the top of the house and gets sucked in from the bottom. It means the pressure of where the air is coming out the most and going in the most, it tends to be at the top of the house and the bottom. That's why I spend most of my time in attics and basements, because you're losing most of your warm air in the winter out of your attic, and it's sucking in cold air mostly in your basement. It's why in the summer, your second floor might be the most uncomfortable room, and in the winter, your basement might be. But it means that while you might be feeling air leaks around windows in the main part of your home, they aren't the biggest source of energy loss. It makes attics and basements the most important. And so I have found holes in attics that I can fit through, and I am not a small man. And so it's one of the things why we prioritize that. The other reason is new windows are not are not gigantic improvements on old windows as far as how insulating they are. Yeah, they're better, but no window is better than a well-insulated wall. So you can, make it slightly better, but you can insulate your attic the equivalent of stacking 5 windows on top of each other. More insulation. It's just a different level that you can do. All right, sorry, getting away from the nerding out here, but in general, there's many reasons building science-wise why windows can matter, but they're usually, I do them later on the list. Let's insulate your attic first. Let's air seal the house first.
Right. Good. Thanks. Is that Mabel with a question?
It is Mabel.
All
Good
right.
evening, everyone. I just wanted to ask Kevin, what kind of advertisement do you have? Do you have flyers, things that we can post on our website? We can share with our residents. What do you have?
Great question.
Share with folks.
So because the law was only signed by the president 2 days ago, I haven't gotten around to making them yet. We are going to soon. We'll probably do mailers and flyers and put sections on our website where people can learn how it impacts them and then immediately sign up for a call to hear more about it. Because you can read a website that says what kind of a rebate you get, but you should ask somebody who knows, are you actually eligible? What does this pertain to me? How much might I expect? And how does one sign up? And also, when can I sign up? All these things, we're going to try to make it easier for people. We'll keep trying to do webinars, events, but call us, email us, we'll do our best. But please, please, please stop calling me and asking me if the improvements you did 4 months ago are going to get you a new tax credit. I apologize. I can't help you with that. My phone has been blowing up on that. They didn't do it. It's only for new things. I apologize. There's a tiny exception, but it's barely worth mentioning. So I don't mean to be mean. It's just people keep calling me, asking if their new fridge from February is eligible. And I'm like, no, it's not.
I understand. I did have one other question. Do you have this program available for rental properties? Or is this only owner occupied homes?
So our grant that we have with Revitalize Milwaukee, it's only for owner occupied homes that we can do right now. The rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act can work for multifamily and rental buildings. The landlord can get a tax credit for improving them, whether it's windows or insulation or whatever. They can also get a very sizable rebate to immediately offset the work. So just to not to belabor the point, because I know I talk too much tonight. Let me just give that quick example one more time, and let me pull it up on the screen here. Come on now. So again, depending on how much I can reduce your utility bills, you can get a $2,000 rebate if it's a 20% reduction, or $4,000 if it's below a certain income. If I can show you how to reduce the bills by 35% or more, you can get a $4,000 immediate rebate, or $8,000 if you're below a certain income. If it is a multifamily building, an apartment complex, then you can multiply that by the number of units in that building. It is not clear. Does multifamily mean 2 or more units, as in there's more than one family? Or does it mean what is usually determined as multifamily buildings, 5 units or more? That's usually what the financial world calls a multifamily building. The law doesn't say anywhere in it. And so we're waiting to find out if duplexes, of which we have tons, would get twice as much as this because there's 2 units. But the short version is, we can do duplexes or triplexes, and the owner who pays for the work can get more off, depending even on the income of their residents. So if they have low income residents, they get more off to upgrade that home.
That's great. I think this has been really valuable information. I'm glad you geeked out on this and that you're as well informed. Got a couple more questions. Sherry, you have a question or just a thumbs up?
I was trying to do a hands up, raise my hand. I wasn't trying to
Yeah,
do
there you go.
thumbs up. But I had a question on the immediate rebates. How does that work? Okay, so to the homeowner, how does that work? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I'm going to pull that screen up again one more time just so you see the numbers. Let's say that you asked me to come to your home to do an energy assessment, and I showed you how to reduce your utility bill by 20% or more. Let's say in your case, that was, I don't know, $4,000 worth of improvements to insulation or air sealing or a variety of things. How the rebate would work is I, as the contractor, would have to say, this bill is $4,000 sticker price. I'm going to subtract the amount that Focus on Energy also provides rebates. That's the utility companies. I now immediately will take off another, in that scenario, $2,000 rebate, or possibly more if they're lower, if they're below a certain income. So that now your final price that you pay today is only, in that scenario, would be about $1,000, something like that. And so suddenly they're doing a lot more work that has a measurable documented reduction for a lot lower than they were a month ago. It's a huge change. We, as the contractors, then the state would send us this amount at some point in the future.
So you just have to find a contractor that actually want to be a part of this program.
Yes, and the good news is the state is the one that is going to distribute these funds. And I say good news because Focus on Energy is overseen by the Wisconsin Public Service Commission. They're the ones that are going to get these funds. So it really stands the reason that they're just going to likely emulate, copy what they do with Focus on Energy. So what it means, you're going to want to talk to an energy assessor to show how much you can get off off of your utility bill and figure out how much you're going to get. And then work with a contractor who knows what they're doing, who can insulate and air seal a home or can listen to what the energy assessor says. They don't have to be the same people.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the first steps is to really connect people with you and get an energy assessment.
For sure.
Yeah. So we'll continue to strategize about how we can do that here in Sherman Park. And as you're thinking about how you're doing it, not only in Sherman Park, but Milwaukee County and beyond. So we really appreciate your partnership with us, Kevin. And this is hopefully giving you a good opportunity to get all this valuable information in a really understandable form.
Thank you for the excuse to put all this together so I can help people.
Yeah, well, I really celebrate the work of green homeowners. So, Ann, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, for those who live within the Sherman Park NID, can that also be a factor to pay for costs?
My understanding is yes, but I'm going to defer to those who run it.
Mabel?
So I at the Sherman Park Community Association, we actually do not run the NID. The NID, the Neighborhood Improvement District number 4, has its own board of directors who make those decisions. The Sherman Park Community Association administers the program for the NID. So I would say this. Probably attend a NID board meeting or talk to the president. And I know he is very, I think you met Nathan. He's very excited about kind of upgrades because he's had them in his own home. So, and about it. So I would suggest talking to the NID board and coming up with a plan that works. One of the major concerns is the exterior repair of the homes. And I would say new roof, right? We do a lot of those every year. So the air sealing part would be great, but we don't want to, homes that are probably in good shape definitely could use the program. I think that would probably be fine. But like I said, I can't make that decision. So I would just defer to the board. But I think it's an awesome way to maybe partner those dollars with other dollars, because Habitat works in Sherman Park. There's also city programs, our NIP program. They're here in Sherman Park as well. So, and that's one of the programs we do run. So we can definitely have that conversation, but I would just defer the conversation to the NID board.
Okay.
And I'll share Nathan's information with you too.
Great. Well, yeah, this is an exciting time. The possibilities for improving the energy efficiency of neighborhoods like Sherman Park are really unfolding, and it's going to be interesting to see how it does unfold.
Yes.
So thank you,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes. And Kevin, I would also like to say thank you for your partnership too, because we've been able to do 15 homes in Sherman Park already with some of the energy efficiencies and work that you've already done. And people have spoken about how it has reduced their energy bills and made their homes more comfortable. So thank you for your work and your dedication to this climate change and keeping us in better housing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful working with you all.
Yes. So we'll look forward to continued work together as we continue to expand the program. And thank goodness the funds are now going to be available to expand the program in amazing ways. So we'll look forward to continuing to work with you, Kevin. And this webinar will be available on the SBCA website in the near future. Markeisha, thank you for your technical support, and thank you for encouraging us to continue to beautify the neighborhood with flowers and the gardens and fruit-bearing trees. That Sherman Park is becoming greener and greener because of work that people like Ann are doing in our community, and Sherry. So we give thanks. And Mabel, thanks to the Community Association again for hosting this webinar. And Kevin, we'll look forward to working with you more, and Ann will be working side by side with Sherry as we continue to work. And thanks to others who joined us and those who may be watching the webinar in the future. So stay green, and let's continue to work for a cleaner, safer, and healthier world for all. Peace be. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.